Hey, what's going on, my friends, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and I help people navigate through their spiritual awakening process. And today I'm going to share with you 5 things I think you should know about the upcoming new moon here on February 11th, 2021. My friends, number 1, energy healing. Right now, it's not that difficult to see and also feel, for you sensitive folks, how much of the darkness that's been long repressed, suppressed in the collective consciousness, as well as us as individuals as well. So much of that darkness is being kicked up to the surface. Now, this has been going on for some time, but now it's going on to such a degree that it's becoming a thing to contend with, in a sense, where it's a lot easier nowadays, at least for this period of cleansing, to pick up stuff, to pick up energy from people, from scenarios. There's just so much dark energy floating in the breeze. And while it's a good thing, it implies this stuff is no longer unconscious. It needs to come out. It needs to be cleansed. But in this transitional period, it's more important than ever to kind of manage your energy. Claim your space. Stay rooted in your own beingness. So it's a fantastic time if you need help with this. A lot of you folks are healers that watch my channel, and you know how to do this. If you're like my wife has all these sprays and crystals and smokes, and she has all these little rituals she does. For me, I'm not the healer type, so it's sort of foreign to me. So she works on me a little bit when I need it. So if you're like me, it's not a bad idea, if you've ever considered it, to go and seek out an energy healer to get a bit of a tune-up. Because a lot of times, what you're feeling, your blues, your depression, your melancholy, your anxiety, a lot of times it is ours, and we're becoming aware of it, but not all the time. Sometimes it really is stuff that we picked up. And now is a time where you don't need to be on guard, but more so mindful. Just like if I was to walk outside and I know it's raining, it would only be wise. I don't need, an umbrella. But if I don't want to get wet, I'm gonna bring one, just to be kind of sensible. So now it might be advantageous to get an energy healing session or something along those lines. Number 2, shedding the past, letting go, moving on from the past in a very, very major way. Sometimes we can wrestle, try to figure out an issue, a reoccurring emotional pattern or issue. Time and time again, we go to do the ayahuasca ceremonies, we see the clairvoyance, we do the meditation, we do the journaling, the shadow work, and years can go by and we're just sort of like wrestling with this same thing, going through periods where we feel like we finally transcended it, only to have life show us that, no, there's in fact a couple other layers that you're now going to deal with, and so on this journey goes. Well, now's the time that we're getting to a frequency where it will become just obvious and easy and natural to let go a lot of these core fundamental issues by simply realizing it didn't start with you. This is a reference from a book I'm reading that is perfectly applicable. It Didn't Start With You. It's a book about the premise that a lot of our lifelong challenges, both emotional and internal, and as well as external, because of course we manifest from our energy state, have nothing to do with us, and yet are simply the inherited trauma, as this person, I can't think of their name, Mark something, I believe, says, inherited trauma that we picked up from our ancestors, from our parents. So it's like, I'll give an example. So my grandfather lost a son to tuberculosis when the kid was about 10 years old. And to lose a child is an extremely tragic thing. And it sent shockwaves through him, through the family. And then, when I was 10, I was the tragedy. I was hit by a firecracker when I was 9 years old, basically. And it was very dangerous. I could have died. I was spent weeks in the hospital. It was an extremely tragic thing for my parents, and so on. So anyway, a couple years ago, when my daughter was turning 9 or 10, I started to feel these intense fears and paranoias and dreads. Like I had this like really unshakable sense of impending doom, like something's going to happen. And it was so powerful, these emotions, that it would literally keep me awake at night. And anytime my wife would go off, like she's right now, she took the kids to the park, anytime things like that would happen where my daughter was out of sight, I would literally worry and get paranoid and see all these negative synchronicities and work myself up into a frenzy. Now I knew it was illogical. I knew that, Victor, there's no reason to think this, bro. She's fine. There's no reason. It's just fear I could sense, but I couldn't shake it. Until finally doing this work and realizing that, oh my goodness, as I look back to my family history, this same theme has played out many times, and us feeling it is an opportunity, because we're going through an awakening, to end this cycle, to end these karmic ancestral shock waves, not only for our own benefit, because we can become free of the emotions, the potential manifestations and ramifications of unconsciously carrying these emotions, but also we don't have to pass it on to future generations, and they can live a more karmic, debt-free life, more grounded in who they really are, uninfluenced by the pains and traumas of the past. And so how do you do this? I know a lot of you have been wrestling with things like this. Why I had people reach out saying, Victor, I have this terrible fear of getting cancer. And I'll say, why? Do you have a family history of it? Well, no. Have you ever been diagnosed with, anything that would give you the slight inclination that you might have cancer? No, but my goodness, I'm freaking out. So it might not be a bad idea to just realize that not all of your issues are yours. They didn't all start with you. Many of them haven't started with you at all. And I can't recommend this book. It didn't start with you enough. It might help you if you're relating to what I just said. And number 3, the big one, your initiation. I wrote a blog post and I called it the Lightworker's Initiation. I've been hearing people actually reach out to me saying that, Victor, it feels like I'm going through an initiation or a rite of passage where life has been, for a time, accelerated. The growth, the changes, the expansions. But now for a lot of us, it's getting to a point where it's just taken on a new speed, an overwhelming speed. And sometimes when this happens, it happens because we're getting very close and very ready to level up and step more into our power, step more into our purpose, and finally put ourselves in a life situation where all the things we've been wanting for so long, like abundance and love and freedom, actually are there. And shortly before that, you sometimes go through these periods of initiation, which initially seem like you're just getting cut off and abandoned by your spirit team. And it can feel like at this point it's very common to question your journey, question your decisions, question your intuition, question everything. Your tarot cards aren't giving you anything. You're not really picking up anything, maybe even from these energy readings, and you feel lost, abandoned, dealing with all this stuff piling into your life. And it feels like an initiation. It's something I went through not that long ago. Well, about 3 or 4 years ago. As a lot of you know, one of my big goals, one of my big dreams was to move my family where I am now out west. It was California at the time, now I'm in Sedona, but I wanted to move out west, out of the cold, into sort of a higher vibe location with more of a down-to-earth mindset and open-minded folks to be around. And it was a lot of work and it required a lot of faith, and I had to quit my job, I had to sell my home. And I had all these wild, intuitive hits that I followed. The craziest one, a lot of you have heard me talk about, I moved into an RV. I sold my home, moved my entire family into an RV on blind faith, no money coming in, and made our way out west, right? And when I did that, I felt, when we first got in that car, pulling the trailer behind us, I felt so free. I felt like I just knew this is where I'm supposed to be. It's crazy to think about, but I just had this feeling of expansiveness and lightness and rightness. I knew I was on my path. So I was, as you can expect, very dumbfounded when a day later we're driving through the mountains of Arizona on our way out to California through a freaking blizzard. It was the middle of the night. And I never liked driving those RVs. They always made me kind of nervous, to be honest. I hated parking them. I didn't like it. Anyway, we're going up into the mountains, into a storm. There's snow and ice everywhere. Cars are spun off left and right. I could barely see. And we're looking on our weather map or our phone. The storm is only going to get worse. There's no way to just stop off with the RV, because in our RV parks in like the wintertime are closed because all the pipes will freeze. So they're just staying and waiting out wasn't an option. We had our dog, we had our cat, we had all of our belongings in this freaking RV. And it was the middle of the night and there was no choice but to forge ahead. And it was terrifying. I felt like I was like this the whole time, cursing my spirit guides, cursing my higher self, thinking, what have you done to me? This is a grave mistake. I'm endangering myself, endangering my family. And all these worst case scenarios are running through my head. And it sucked. It was very uncomfortable. And it didn't end there. It was like 2 days of crawling through this treacherous freaking mountains. And it was so unnerving, man. Oh my God. But we finally made it to San Diego, just in time to catch the sunset. When I put my feet in the sand, it was glorious. I wish I could show you, but I have this cool picture of me and my kids, and our feet are in the sand, and our arms are like this. We're looking up. It was this crazy sense of accomplishment. And it wasn't like, okay, the bad part's over, you made it. Already, even like shortly after, I could look back and see why that had to happen. See the value in that rite of passage. It cultivated a tremendous degree of courage, self-confidence, and true faith. Courage, self-confidence, and faith has been part of me ever since that rite of passage. It has enhanced every single imaginable area of my life. So was there a reason for it? Heck yeah. Did it suck? You bet. But it was worth it. And if you're going through this right now, if you can relate with, you can take my situation as a metaphor for what your life might be feeling like at this time. Just remember, there's one thing you have to know. One little thing that'll get you through this is never give up. Never give up. Stay the course. You know what's ahead. And number 4, letting your freak flag fly. Being more apologetic about who you are and not so concerned about the reactions people have towards you. This is not easy, but I do know this. The more you step into your power, the more you embody more of your truth, the real you, it becomes very difficult to contain it. It becomes very uncomfortable and unnatural, and it feels forced to hold back who you are, even if the reasons seem justified. Like, okay, I know who I am, and I know they're not gonna like it. My friends, family, coworkers, they're gonna think it's weird. They're not gonna agree. It might spark an argument. But it's like, so there's this battle we have. So what I've learned is that becoming your true self, or at least going in that direction on this awakening path, is completely inevitable. There is no fighting it. And if you do fight it, you're going to suffer even more than dealing with the potential backlash or haters or naysayers you might encounter in your life. And this happened to me in a very real way on YouTube, as you can imagine. There came a point where I started to really grow on YouTube. And for a while, it was primarily just positive feedback. People who liked me, the YouTube was showing my videos to people who would resonate. But eventually, as I started to grow, YouTube started showing my videos to more people, a larger demographic. And a percentage of them didn't like what I had to say. In fact, a lot of them were quite resistant to what I had to say and would take the time to leave me a lot of really negative, hateful, just dark energy sort of intention type of comments, all projected at me. And it was this wild up and down roller coaster I lived with for a while, concerning myself with the feedback. I was literally at the whim of the recent comment. Victor, you're great. You changed my life. Awesome. You suck. You are devil worshiper, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Victor, I love you. I literally did that over and over and over again like a madman for quite a while, until I came to a point where I realized I cannot live like this. This is insane. As good as it feels to be appreciated, something's got to shift. So I did what a lot of you do. I went on YouTube and I said, how to deal with haters. And I came across this Elliot Hulse video, and he gave this perfect analogy that helped me so much, which I'm going to share with you to hopefully give you permission to let your freak flag fly and be yourself more so. Anyway, this analogy is about a bird, right? So birds in the morning, especially even here in Sedona, in like the winter, once the sun comes up, you can hear them singing and chirping. It's like clockwork. And sometimes, I'll walk outside and I'll say, wow, what a lovely bird. That's so beautiful. I love the nature. There might be maybe my neighbor, is hungover and he wakes up and he's crabby and the birds wake him up. And he comes outside and he's like, God, he's pissed off at the bird, yelling at the bird. But the whole point, the bird doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about the neighbor. The bird just sings. It just wakes up and it sings completely unapologetically, just singing its tune with no regard whatsoever for how they are affecting people. They just sing their song. They are just themselves unapologetically. Now, I don't do this perfectly. I've come a long way, but as best I can, I try to be that bird, just being myself in joy, with passion, and letting the cards fall as they may. And accepting the fact that the more I do that, the more unapologetic I am about who I really am. And I'm not afraid to hold that back and not afraid to express my true self. The more often I tend to encounter people who really don't like me. But I've come to accept that. I've come to not gain validation from the external and just know that if I do my best to be myself and be sensible, a good human being, then that's all I could ever ask of myself. And if people don't like that, well, I did my best. So now is a time where you might be feeling called to be more of yourself, to express more of yourself in a more undiluted way. And hopefully that story I shared can give you a little bit of help in doing so. Because as Bashar would say, you're doing people a disservice by, how does he say it? He says something along the lines of like, it's a disservice to hold back the truth of who you are. You're like depriving people. Sure, you're avoiding the confrontations here and there, but you are depriving people of your gifts, of your beautiful energy by not being yourself. And number 5, and most importantly, letting in the love. Right now, all of us, anybody watching this video, has done a ridiculous amount of spiritual growth in this lifetime. Period. I say that with confidence. Every one of you has done a lot of work. And at some point, there's results that we can benefit from. And a lot of times, they're ripe for us to have, meaning abundance, freedom, love, etc. But we push it away. We push it away because we don't feel worthy of it. But right now, there's so much love knocking at your door. It's time to open the door and let the love in. And I know it's not easy. It's something I'm working on myself. And I'll give an example. So now, so more than before, I get people coming up to me that recognize me from YouTube. And they come up and they say, they just give me this beautiful, expression of gratitude. Victor, thank you so much, so on and so forth. For the longest time, until recently, honestly, I would just nod and say, thank you, but you're the one who's powerful. I'm just a reflection, all that kind of stuff. I would literally block the nice things people were saying because I didn't really feel that way. I didn't feel like I deserved that praise. And funny enough, lately, people have been calling me out on that. People at the retreats especially, who get to know me a little bit, they'll be like, Victor, I can tell you're not hearing me. You need to know that you've helped me. So now I'm trying my best to let the love in. But why do we not let the love in? Well, we don't feel worthy. We feel there's a vulnerability to let the love in. We have to open up our hearts and step into that vulnerability where we have been hurt in the past. Reminds me of when I was in high school. There was this beautiful girl that I was just madly in love with. I thought she was just God's gift to humanity. And I I just felt like I loved her so much and thought she was so beautiful. And I thought she was way out of my league. I didn't even have like the idea that I could ever like date her. Well, sure enough, you know, things happened and we started dating, and I was so happy. I felt like this is all if I die now, I'd be content. I felt like I had it all. And I was walking around for a couple of weeks when we were dating, just on this freaking pink cloud, man. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I didn't even see it coming, she called me. I was like, hey, what's going on, so-and-so? And then she broke up with me. And that was it. I could just tell it was final. And I will literally to this day never forget how it felt to put down the phone and sink and melt into my couch and feel that intense emotional pain of rejection and lack of worthiness. I felt like I died inside. I wished to die. It was so painful. It was a physically painful, emotional knife dagger to the heart I felt. And it was so out of left field. I was so open and it pop, got me, right? So for years, many years, I walked around in other relationships, more so in my head, protecting my tender heart from that ever happening again. But now, life is provoking me. Even this is something I'm working on right now, provoking me to let the walls down and step into that vulnerability. My wife has been calling me out a little bit. Now, I'm not like super like in my head, just to be clear. I'm not like this, you know, emotionless guy, but the amount of love I feel for my wife, I sometimes hold back because it scares me. And she's been getting to a level in her own evolution where she's seeing that finally, where we kind of match each other's growth, and she's finally rising up and saying, Victor, something has to change. So I'm changing, I'm doing my best, but it's hard. As I let that wall down, I feel all those emotions I felt, those insecurities I felt as a little high school kid. But as uncomfortable as it can be to step into the vulnerability, now the love can come in. Now the love can come in. It's that time, my friends. I'm seeing this with other people too. I kind of went on too much at length in my own example. I was going to share a couple others, but right now, love is probably knocking at your door in some way. And it's a choice that you have to make to either wait a little while or open the door. But right now, if we can open that door, we can open ourselves up to just a greater, like a higher octave of life. Feeling love more deeply. Trusting not in people, not in circumstance, not in the ups and downs of life, but trusting ourselves, trusting our path. We have new mindsets. If I had the mindset I had now back in high school, I would have licked my wounds and thought to myself, well, what could I have done differently? I mean, well, why did I attract this circumstance? How can I learn from it? Oh, and I probably would have learned a lot of valuable lessons and then felt confident that, you know what, there's someone even better the universe has in store for me. So we're not the same people. We're not as unconscious. We're more spiritual, and we look at life differently. So we don't have to be so afraid or on guard of the pain or the ups and downs of life, because we're different and we will handle things differently. And we know that everything that comes into our life is working for our own benefit, just like the crazy ass RV drive as a perfect example. Okay, so now is the time. If you can open up that door to your heart, you can allow the love in. And guess what comes along with the love? The abundance, financial abundance, freedom, living situations, soulmates, all this stuff is waiting to get in, and all you have to do is say yes. And to assist you on this journey, my friends, I'm going to share with you my own personal daily routine for keeping myself in the flow, rooted in my own energy. It's something called Kundalini Yoga Punches. I'm a Kundalini Yoga practitioner, by the way. And in this free video, I walk you through a 3-minute routine that will help you get into your flow, get into your zone, and it will just help you sort of navigate these intense energies we're experiencing right now with more grace, with more flow, and with more ease. It helps me. I do it every day. And if you want to see what I do every day, there's a link down below. Check it out. It's totally free. And with that said, much love to you, my friends. Peace.